Hello. So just before we went on break, we went and purchased through the school a program called GoGuardian Teacher, and it works with our GoGuardian filter, but it allows teachers to monitor and kind of control a little bit the students' devices during class times to make sure that they are staying on task and not dabbling in anything that they shouldn't be during your class periods. So the first thing I'm going to have you do is go to teacher.goguardian.com. And the first time you log in, it's going to have all of the agreement forms stating that you know that this is for educational purposes only and that it will not be abused or used for anything outside of an educational basis. Once you have agreed to all of those terms and conditions, it will bring you to your dashboard, which will more or less look like this, minus obviously the TEALS class that I have created already to kind of test out this software. So from your Classrooms tab here on this sidebar, you will be able to create, remove, organize, and ultimately get to all of your classes that you create. GoGuardian has gone and partnered with Google in this tool, so we have the ability to simply import a Google Classroom, which is really nice because then it'll take all of the students that are in that classroom and automatically pull them and sync them up with their email account and filtered account. So I'm going to go ahead and select asynchronous coding because that is the class we're using for this exercise. Just a heads up though, you can add multiple classes at the same time, so you don't have to do them one by one. Once you have all of the classes you wish to add selected, you will go to the bottom and click Import Classroom. It brings all of your students, and it takes you automatically within that class to your Students tab so that you can see all of the students that are enrolled. This has really got some neat features in it that are really simple and behind the scenes, but that I personally love, and that's the fact that say we lose a student and you haven't quite gotten around to removing them from Google Classroom, you can remove a student in your GoGuardian filter right from here. It keeps them in the Google Classroom, but now you won't be having them take up space in your dashboard. Also, for that matter, if we were to get new students, you add them to Google Classroom, and then you sync students from that Google Classroom, and it will automatically bring them in to your filtering settings. So there's our students. We can't do much in this page other than view our students. However, if we go down to teachers, we have the ability to add co-teachers, co-owners, and helpers. And each of those roles has specific abilities that come with that role. And I'm not going to go into depth into them, but if you would like to, you can click right here, and it will tell you a little bit more about each role. Ultimately, though, to add a teacher, owner, or helper, you are going to click this green Add Teacher button. Then what you'll do is you will enter their name. I'm going to use Miss Dennis because she's the co-teacher on TEALS. And then I will assign the role based on what I believe they need to have access to. Once I've done that, I will click Add Teacher, and her name will show up here. And what that means is once I have added a co-teacher, when they go to teacher.goguardian.com, they will have the class I have assigned them to on their dashboard. Okay, last one we're going to look at here is settings, and this is just kind of where you can tweak a little bit of your classroom a little bit more to fit your needs and organizational skills. So settings is broken up into 3 sections: info, scheduling, and reporting. So info is pretty straightforward. It allows you to rename your class. You can designate a subject. That comes in handy later, and I will bring that up. You can describe it if you want. You can add a scene, which is a pre-made set of rules, restrictions, or exceptions to your specific classroom needs. We will also look into that. You can change the color of it. You can add emojis, however you want to organize and customize your classroom dashboard. Once you've changed this how you want, you click Update Classroom, and we will move on to scheduling. I love this page because when you schedule a session, what that ultimately means is once the start time comes about, GoGuardian will automatically open up a session for that class where it monitors student use. This is nice because if you're like me and you forget, or if you're absent that day, GoGuardian still keeps an eye out that children are doing what they're supposed to be doing during your assigned class period. And then it will send you an email with that breakdown after class ends, so the end time. To add a schedule, you can hit your start time, designate it, end time, designate it, and then you can select what days of the week that class will be held. Then you will add the schedule, and once you've done that, it will more or less look like this. And you have the ability to delete days if you accidentally added an extra or if the schedule changes. Once you have that all done, we'll move on to reporting. And this pretty much is a single setting that will send you that report at the end of class. It automatically comes enabled, but if you, for some reason, are like, I really hate getting emailed reports, you can disable it. Okay, that is the gist of our classroom settings. Let's move on to scenes. This is where I was saying you can create custom rules and restrictions or exceptions for your classroom. So let's go ahead and click Add Scene. You can start by naming it. So we're going to name this one Coding. You can add a description if you want, but let's look directly at the filter. Now, this one stumped me a little bit because the way my brain worked was, oh, if I want to allow something, I switch allow, enter it. No. What this is allowed mode makes it so that all websites that the filter doesn't already block on the administrative end are allowed, except for any manually entered here. Those would be blocked. Opposite-wise, if you were to switch this to block mode, then every website would be blocked, except for any you added down here. So it just depends on how you want your classroom set up. I generally keep it on allow, and then I would block something like youtube.com. That way students can't be scrolling around on YouTube during my class period. The really cool thing is that GoGuardian kind of already comes with some custom lists. So if you were to put it in block mode and you only wanted to select things available, you could sit there and say, I want to allow Kahoot and all that they have implied with that. Cami, da-da-da-da-da. You kind of get the gist of it. If there is a specific list of things that you would like to add, but you don't want to have to type in between classes, you can create a custom list and you can add your list of websites manually. So, for example, I could come in and I could enter coding and then websites that I want students to have access to. Save, and then I would just select and add. However, like I said, for my purposes, it works best to just keep it in allowed and block websites that I specifically don't want them to have access to. Tab management. This one's actually really nifty. I love it. So what it does is when your class session starts, it will automatically push to student devices set tabs that I want them to be on. So I would sit there and I would go, okay, let's add our CMU, that's our coding website. And then while we're at it, let's go ahead and add the Classroom's Google tab. And we'll see when I show you an example of how that just kind of streamlines stuff. It makes it so that these two are the only thing open at the beginning of class. It's really nice. And you can add multiples to it depending on your need. Maximum open tabs. This one's interesting. I have not had the use for this in TEALS yet because most of the time kids are pretty good about staying on task. Plus, I really don't want to mess up any work that they have from a previous class by forcing it to close during TEALS. But ultimately, if you have a student whose computer is kind of slow and laggy because they have like 50 tabs open, I can make it so that at the beginning of class there's only, say, 7 tabs open. So just depends on what you would like for your class. So once you have all of these settings set up, we're going to click Save Scene. And we will be able to manually turn this on at any given time in class, like for independent work, or we can set it so that our class automatically starts with this. Right now, it is manual, but we can automatically start class with this scene, which would mean automatically no YouTube, automatically those 2 tabs starting by themselves. So I will show you how to do that. Calendar is just kind of a visualization of your classes for the week. That's it. That's really it. It'll also show you if you manually start a session outside of that schedule we made. It'll keep a record of that for you. Student reports, these are really nice if you need to reference back to a student's usage for whatever reason, parent-teacher conference or disciplinary issues. You just select the class, you select the student, and you select the date, the range of date. And make sure you click the start date as well as the end date that you want that range for. And we can see top 5 sites that they visited during our class for those days, the top 5 documents they had open during our class for those days, as well as their top 5 Google searches for our class during those days. If we continue down, we have the amount of times that there had to be teacher intervention, and that could be whether their screen had to be locked, tabs had to be manually opened by the teacher, tabs had to be manually closed by the teacher, or the number of times that the student tried to venture into a blocked website. We also have screenshots, so if there is something that you would like for future reference, be it good or bad, you can take a screenshot of the student's device and it would store it in this report, as well as allow you to save it to your Google Drive or your hard drive. Then we have detailed browse history, which is exactly what it sounds like. It is the browse history for that student during your class on the days that you marked above. So yeah, that is how those individualized student reports work. Now, let us hop into a class so that you can see how to drive this. So asynchronous coding starts at 2:15. However, I am going to manually start a class, and that could be for whatever reason. We'll click Start Class, and it's going to populate with my student email once it sees that I am online. Okay, waiting for activity. So the second I navigate to a website, it shows it. There's a lot of me on that page. Okay, so let's say class starts. I don't have a scene automatically applied, which is why it didn't start class with 2 tabs. Let's take a look at how to get that to happen, because that's a really nice way to start class structured. I'm going to come up to the top right hand where it says no scene applied, and I am going to select coding. Okay, now on the student's end, what just happened is it opened those 2 tabs that were a part of that scene we created earlier, the rules and exceptions. So it automatically takes them to those pages. Okay. This right here will be populated with all of your students and all of their devices. You can kind of see brief previews of it, and that kind of keeps up to an extent without you having to zoom in a great deal. If you would like to get a better view of what the student is doing or to help them, we've used that a lot for TEALS, you will hover over the image of their desktop and you will click. That brings you into this view. So from this view, we have their display, which, as you can see by the magnifying glass, I can make fill my entire screen so that I can really visualize what they're doing and help. But down below their display, we have 4 buttons. We have Exclude Student, which allows me to manually remove a student from a session for that day. I can open a new tab. When I click it, I enter the address that I want. I click Open Tab, and on the student's device, that tab will open. So next to that, we have Lock Device. This one's nifty because if you have a student who is working on their computer while you're giving instruction and it's distracting or you don't think they're paying attention, you can go to lock screen. You can say eyes up front and lock their screen, and what will happen is it will lock their screen with that message. Then you have screenshot. This is what I referenced during the student reports. If a student is doing something exceptional or exceptionally bad, you can go ahead and take a screenshot, and it has saved that now to this session, but also to the student. Okay, to the right hand of this window, we have two tabs. We have student activity and chat. Let's focus on student activity first. Right off the bat, it tells me that my student that I have selected has two tabs open. An active tab, which is this top one, and any other tabs. From here, I can block a tab for the entire class. So if they're on a URL that I notice multiples using and wasting time on, I can block it for the entire class. Or I can simply just close the tab, and it will forcibly close the tab on the student's device, just that student's. This is something that I don't foresee a lot of you having to use, but that's apps. We have apps blocked for students, except for those that have been approved and pushed to their devices. So this I don't see having a great deal of application for your classes. Next to student activity, we have chat. So this class is set to have chat automatically start with the class. What that will do is, if you look at the students display down here, they have a green circle with a word bubble in it. That is their chat icon. They can click that, and it will open up a chat with the teacher. Just the teacher. And we've discovered with Teals that goes to any and all teachers for the class. So they can type in a message and they can say, and it will pop up on my end saying, hey, student messaged you saying, help me please. And then I have the ability to message back and say, I can spell. So in that way, you can communicate. And the thing that the Teals students like about that is their questions aren't put on display in Google Meet. So they tend to be a little bit more willing to ask questions using this as opposed to the Google Meet where all of the class can see their question. Outside of that, we have call student. This I don't foresee as needing because we have Google Meet, but if you had a student that was at home and needed help and they, for some reason, weren't on a Google Meet, you could voice call them, and that is restrained to a voice call. It asks if students are all right being recorded because you can record these phone calls. And just a reminder, all of our students' parents have signed off on being recorded. So, again, I don't really think you're going to need it with the presence of Google Meet. So I'm not going to go too in-depth on that one. Send announcement. This one is really nice because it allows me to send an announcement that we have 5 more minutes before class ends. If I can spell. And that will send an announcement, in this instance, only to this particular student, where their entire screen is taken over and an announcement, a message pops up stating, for this class, there are 5 more minutes before class ends. To make this go away, they have to acknowledge it and say, got it. And then on my end, it says, okay, the student saw it and accepted it. Okay. That is it on the individual student display. This right here. Let's look at the overall class session settings. Confusing. Okay, so we have the chat, which again, I have this defaultly set to start with the chat enabled, just to kind of encourage students to ask questions if they're not comfortable asking in front of the entire class. Settings, you can have audio alerts and desktop notifications. That just means that your machine as well as theirs will set off a sound when a chat comes through. Off-task alerts. This is interesting. So you know how earlier when I had you setting up classes, it asked you to select a subject? That's where this comes into play. So if you turn on off-task alerts, it looks at the class subject that you assigned to the class and kind of creates a custom-made off-task alert system. Unfortunately for me, technology and computer science is not one of the subjects they have available yet. They show you which ones they have available. These do not have off-task alerts available. However, English, history, social studies, math, and science do. So if you teach one of those classes, congratulations, you've got a golden ticket. Just to kind of look, what it does is it allows you to help kind of keep students on task, which is nice. But again, I don't get to use it because I'm not one of the chosen subjects. And then, of course, we have our scene that we looked at earlier, to have it automatically start with and all of that stuff. Okay, last home stretch. We have these up here, screens. That is your student device screens, the dashboard that shows all of your students and where they're at on their devices. Next, we have timelines, and that literally shows you a timeline of how the student has navigated around the internet at any given time during class. Screenshots. This is if you take any screenshots where it will store them, and this is where you would then be able to download it to your hard drive or save it to your Google Drive if you needed to reference it later with a parent or Mr. Russell. Now, this next part has some really cool instructional opportunities, and that is present to class. Okay. The first two settings I don't really think are necessary for our setup because this would be, again, in conjecture with Google Meet. So I usually leave these two off. But then we have the option to present your screen and lock students into presentation. So what that does is, first off, it allows you to display something across all of the student devices, like share your screen, except force it to share your screen. And then lock students into presentation. Sounds terribly big brother of me, and I know that. But the thing that is great about this setting is students will not be able to deviate away from what I am presenting. So let's say I am giving notes for a subject that they really need to understand, or we're going over review material. I can present my screen and it will be the review material, but then I'm going to lock my screen so that students can't close or open up any other tabs. It's great, and I will show you. So, select students to present to. We're going to select all and choose what to share. I am going to share. Let's go ahead and share our CMU portal. Okay. Now, student screens will automatically look like this, saying your teacher is presenting. And it will push it to all of their devices, depending on how many you're pushing to. That can sometimes take a little bit longer. That's okay. But now, I can move around and we can go to subject material and I can go over it with them and I can say blah, 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 blah. But here's the best part. Let's say a student tries to open a new tab. Because I've locked it, they can't. They are not allowed to open a new tab. Let's see what happens when we go to Google. Nope. Your teacher's presenting. Too bad. Sorry, you can't do that. Bring them right back. Okay, let's close that tab. Automatically opens it right back up and takes you right back to what the teacher's presenting. This is a great way to help students focus on what it is you want them to focus on. This is a really cool tool, and you don't have to go through all of the things of, okay, class, now click this, now, okay, go to that, now enlarge it to the full. You don't have to do that. GoGuardian already does that for you. So that is that feature, and I kind of feel like that's one of my favorite features. Once you're done, you just click Stop Presenting, and it's done. It's off on the student's end too. So, because I manually started this asynchronous class, I am going to manually end this class. Remember, if you wait until your scheduled time, you don't have to manually start and end it. I think that's it, you guys. I love this tool. It is great. and it has a lot of potential. So I will attach some reading material associated with this for anything that I might have missed or that you want to know more about, as well as a letter that I intend to send to students, kind of giving them a heads up that we will begin utilizing this. So that is it. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I hope you guys have fun fiddling around and getting this to work for you. Okay, bye.